The photograph trembled in his hands as he stood in the orphanage hallway, staring at a little girl with eyes he'd recognize anywhere. Those same green eyes had haunted his dreams for 7 years. The eyes of the daughter who vanished without a trace when she was just 3 years old. But that was impossible. His daughter was gone. Everyone told him she was gone. So why was this child standing right in front of him with paint-stained fingers and a shy smile, wearing the same birthmark on her left wrist that he'd kissed 1,000 times before she disappeared? Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, if you believe in the power of kindness and real human connection, please subscribe to True Kindness Tales and hit that like button. We share stories that remind us of the good that still exists in this world, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Marcus Chen had spent 7 years learning how to breathe again. 7 years since that October afternoon when his 3-year-old daughter, Emma, disappeared from a playground in suburban Chicago while his ex-wife was supposed to be watching her. 7 years of police investigations that went nowhere, of searching faces in every crowd, of waking up at night convinced he heard her voice calling for him. His marriage had crumbled under the weight of blame and grief. His career as an architect had suffered as he threw himself into search. Efforts that slowly, painfully led to nothing. Eventually, everyone around him gently suggested it was time to move forward, to accept that Emma was gone, to try to rebuild his life. So Marcus did what broken people often do. He threw himself into work, into anything that might give his pain purpose. He started volunteering, donating to children's charities, trying to create something good from his loss. His therapist said it was healthy. His friends said it was healing. But Marcus knew the truth. Every child he helped was a prayer, a bargain with the universe. Please let someone be helping Emma wherever she is. Please let her be safe. On a cold March morning, Marcus drove to St. Catherine's Orphanage on the south side of Chicago. He'd arranged to donate computers for their education program and wanted to deliver them personally. The director, a warm woman named Mrs. Patterson, gave him a tour of the facility. 23 children currently called this place home, she explained as they walked through bright hallways decorated with children's artwork. Some were waiting for adoption. Others were in temporary care. A few had special circumstances that made their situations complicated. They passed a large room where several children were engaged in an art class. Marcus glanced inside and felt his heart stop. Among the group of kids painting at easels was a girl who looked about 10 years old. She had straight dark hair, pale skin, and was completely focused on her canvas. Something about her profile made his chest tighten. He couldn't explain it. He'd seen thousands of children over the past 7 years, each one causing a moment of painful hope before reality set in. But this was different. Mrs. Patterson noticed him staring and smiled. "That's Sophie. She's one of our quiet ones. Loves to paint. Been with us for about 3 years now." Marcus asked if he could meet some of the children, his voice sounding strange even to himself. As they entered the art room, the girl looked up, and Marcus felt the world tilt. Her eyes were the exact shade of green he saw every time he closed his own. But millions of people had green eyes. This was just his broken heart playing tricks again. The art teacher introduced him to the class, explaining about the computer donation. The children clapped politely. Sophie gave a small smile but didn't speak. Marcus found himself walking toward her easel, drawn by something he couldn't name. She was painting a garden with extraordinary detail for a child her age. He complimented her work and she thanked him quietly, then returned to painting. As she reached for a brush, her sleeve pulled back and Marcus saw it. A small strawberry-shaped birthmark on her left wrist. The same birthmark. The exact same spot. His vision blurred. His daughter had that birthmark. He'd made up stories about it. Told Emma it was a magic strawberry that proved she was special. The room suddenly felt airless. It couldn't be. The odds were astronomical. But he had to know. He had to be sure. Marcus managed to keep his composure, finished the tour, and thanked Mrs. Patterson. Then he asked, as casually as he could manage, about Sophie's background. Where had she come from? What was her story? Mrs. Patterson's expression grew guarded. Sophie had been brought to them 3 years ago by social services after being found abandoned at a bus station in Indianapolis. She had no identification, couldn't or wouldn't tell them her real name, and appeared to have no memory of her life before. They'd named her Sophie and estimated her age. Despite extensive efforts, no missing child reports matched her description. It was heartbreaking, Mrs. Patterson said. The poor girl had clearly been through trauma. She rarely spoke and seemed to have blocked out her past entirely. Marcus's hands were shaking so badly he had to shove them in his pockets. Emma had been 3 when she vanished. Sophie appeared to be about 10 now. The timeline matched. The age matched. Those eyes. That birthmark. But he needed to be absolutely certain before he let hope destroy him again. He asked Mrs. Patterson if there was any way to get more information about Sophie, explaining carefully that he'd lost a daughter years ago and just needed to be sure. Mrs. Patterson was sympathetic but firm. There were protocols, privacy concerns, legal procedures. She couldn't just hand over a child's information to every parent who thought they saw a resemblance, but she saw something in Marcus's face that made her pause. She'd worked with traumatized children for 20 years and had learned to trust her instincts. She agreed to let him visit again to spend time with Sophie in supervised settings. Maybe if Sophie spent time with him, something might trigger a memory. It was a long shot, but Mrs. Patterson had seen stranger things happen. Trauma could lock memories away, but sometimes the right key could open those doors again. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus visited the orphanage 5 times. He brought art supplies for Sophie's class, helped with homework, read stories to the younger children, and slowly, carefully, he spent time with Sophie. She was cautious at first, but gradually warmed to him. She showed him her paintings. He told her about architecture, showed her how buildings were designed. He never pushed, never asked direct questions about her past. He just let her be comfortable. Then one afternoon, Marcus brought a box of strawberries for snack time. Sophie took one and stared at it for a long moment. She touched the birthmark on her wrist, then looked at the strawberry, then at Marcus. Something flickered in her eyes. A confusion, a disturbance in the careful blank wall she'd built around her memories. That night, Sophie had a nightmare. Mrs. Patterson called Marcus the next morning. Sophie had woken up crying, saying she dreamed about a man who called her Strawberry Girl, a man who drew pictures of houses, a man who sang her a song about stars. Marcus could barely breathe as he recited the lullaby he'd sung to Emma every single night. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, Daddy wonders where you are. Mrs. Patterson's voice cracked as she told him. Sophie had just repeated those exact words. They agreed to DNA testing immediately. The next 3 days were the longest of Marcus's life. He barely slept, terrified that science would prove his hope wrong, equally terrified of what it would mean if he was right. Where had Emma been for 7 years? What had happened to her? Who had taken her, and how had she ended up abandoned and alone? When the results came back, Mrs. Patterson called him to the orphanage. She was crying before she even spoke. Sophie was Emma, his daughter, his little girl. Against impossible odds, he had found her. But Emma didn't remember him, didn't remember her name, didn't remember her life before. The trauma of whatever she'd endured had locked it all away. The authorities launched an immediate investigation. Using the new information, they traced Sophie's path backward and discovered she'd been taken by a woman who'd lost her own daughter and had descended into mental illness. The woman had kept Emma for 4 years before her condition worsened, and in a moment of clarity or confusion, had left the child at that bus station with no explanation. Reuniting with Emma was nothing like Marcus had imagined during all those years of searching. There was no magical instant recognition, no tearful embrace where everything was suddenly okay. Instead, there were careful visits with therapists present. There were gentle conversations. There was patience, so much patience. As Emma slowly began to feel safe enough to let fragments of memory return, Marcus showed her photos, told her stories, sang her that lullaby. And piece by piece, moment by moment, a little girl started to remember a daddy who loved her. It took 6 months of therapy, legal proceedings, and careful transition before Emma came home. She was 10 now, not 3. She'd missed years of her childhood, but she was alive, and she was safe, and slowly, she was healing. Marcus had gone to that orphanage to donate computers, to do a simple act of kindness, never imagining it would lead him to his greatest miracle. The odds of walking into that specific orphanage on that specific day and seeing that specific child were incalculable. But kindness had led him there. His decision to turn his grief into helping other children had put him in exactly the right place at the right time. Today, Emma is 15. She's an incredible artist whose paintings have won school competitions. She still has hard days, moments when the lost years feel like a canyon she can't cross. But she also has a father who never stopped looking, never stopped loving her, even when the world told him to let go. And she has a second chance at a childhood, a life, a future. Marcus keeps that first painting she made, the garden she was working on the day he found her. It hangs in their living room as a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary acts of kindness lead to the most extraordinary miracles. Sometimes we do good things in the world expecting nothing in return, just hoping to make someone's day a little brighter. But every act of kindness ripples outward in ways we can't predict. Every donation, every volunteer hour, every moment we choose compassion over convenience. We're weaving invisible threads that connect us all. Marcus could have written a check and moved on with his day. But he chose to show up, to be present, to look into the eyes of children who needed to be seen. And one of those children was the one he'd been searching for all along. Let this story remind you that your kindness matters, that showing up matters, that caring about others can change everything. Have you ever experienced an unexpected moment of connection or kindness that changed your life? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how compassion has touched your life.